So the stairs to my attic had smelled like burnt hair for 3 days. Extremely odd because it was just that area. And I have a very old, drafty house. On day 4, I came home from work just before midnight. And as soon as I walked through the door, I felt like I had someone standing over my shoulder, breathing down my neck. The feeling was so strong that I opened my medicine cabinet so the mirror was against the wall. I also showered with the shower curtain open because I had a powerful need to see the room. After a shower, I was a little less on edge until I walked past my 4-year-old daughter's room. The door was closed, but I heard her talking in her sleep. Then I heard a loud crash. I slowly opened the door to find her sleeping on top of the covers, and the pile of stuffed animals she insisted on sleeping with scattered across the room. I turned the light on low, looked around the room, and checked her breathing. All seemed well, so I went to bed. The next morning, I asked her if she had a bad dream. Yeah, there was a man with no arms and sauce on his face, and he kept laughing at me. I told him to go away, but he wouldn't. Then an arm came out of the wall, threw me into the ceiling, and I crashed back down on my bed and went back to sleep. Me, sauce on his face? Yeah, red like spaghetti.
It was about 4 years ago. It wasn't the first paranormal occurrence to happen, just the one that scared me the most. I couldn't fall back asleep, so I decided to work on a project in my craft room. I was in there for about 45 minutes when the small monitor to the nanny cam started rapidly flickering on and off. The cams are in the living room and our son's room. I went over to the monitor and picked it up, but all of a sudden made this loud, ear-piercing sound like a mic feedback. It startled me and I dropped the monitor face. I noticed the glow around the edges had stopped flickering. I picked up the monitor and turned to look at the screen. I saw my son standing as still as a statue in the middle of the living room staring at the wall. I started for the door with the monitor still in my hand. When I glanced down again, my son's head turned, and his eyes went directly to the camera in the upper corner of the room. He had no expression on his face at all. I left the room and went through the small kitchen and dining room, rounded the corner to the living room, and it was empty. The door to our bedroom was on the other side. I went in there, and my son was sound asleep in the same position he was in when I left. My husband looked up from his errand. I asked him if he had woken up and went to the living. He told me no. I asked if my husband had gotten up to go to the bathroom or kitchen, thinking maybe he just didn't see our son try to follow him. But husband swears he hasn't left the bed at all, and our son has been peacefully snoring away the whole time. Like I said before, this wasn't the first time we had seen Doe, but it was always so brief that you didn't really have time to get scared, or have it completely register yet. This was different. It wasn't just a glimpse. Above all, it was the look on my son's face, that empty void stare. When he turned his head to face the camera still, even now typing it gave me the chills.
Back when I was 14, my town had an abandoned nursing home that my friends and I loved to mess around in and smoke. We were always aware of the eerie feeling, but didn't mind it. The way inside the building was through a broken window on the first floor that entered what would be a patient's room. We got our bowl packed, and for whatever reason I wanted to close the door to the room. Now I understand that a gust of wind can pull a door shut, but these doors were pretty heavy, and since the building was so old, it required some force to close it. Now when I tell you this door got ripped from my hands and slammed shut, I mean it. I just remember turning around screaming and seeing my friend just headfirst dive out of the window. It's funny looking back on it, but I still remember that feeling of being genuinely terrified. We've also had things from the 3rd story in the stairwell that just get thrown down the shaft. Vases, rolls of toilet paper. That never spooked us too much, so rather than running, we would investigate, and we never saw or heard anyone. The nursing home was burnt down by a kid in my grade at the time.
My sister and I are 11 months apart in age. She was 4 and I was 3. We both vividly remember being in our bedroom, and there was a small crack in the wall above one of our beds. We were babbling on about our mother being mean for making us clean our room. The crack started to crack off more and more until there was a head of a white-haired old lady. She was telling us to be nicer to our mom and to always listen to her. We threw things at the old lady and ran out of the room screaming. We ran to our mom trying to tell her what had happened. My mom remembered that day, but thought we were just trying to get out of cleaning up our room. When we did go back in the room, the crack was just a little crack again. But she told us when we were older, she had found plaster on the floor behind the bed with no source from where it came from.
When I was a kid, I'd go stay with my parents at their apartment. And one night, we saw a really bright and tiny light rush through the living room. Doesn't seem like much, but hang on. Another thing that happened was that my dad said he woke up in the middle of the night once and saw the bedroom door handle just twisting randomly with a shadow underneath the door. Mother was in the same room, of course, and they were the only ones there at the time. They also both mentioned one time that while in the living room, they heard something from the kitchen that sounded like all the cabinets. Doors just randomly slammed. But when they went in there, nothing was out of place. Another time, they were both asleep and in the bedroom, and they were woken up by a real loud growl that sounded like it was from something right next to them. Mother wouldn't sleep in there afterward. There was this real creepy thing that happened in the bedroom as well. It had a large closet with a shelf at the top, and my dad said he kept hearing something in there. When he went to check it out, he ended up finding an obituary pamphlet stuck up between the pieces of wood that made up the shelf. Belonged to some lady that had died in the 80s, and this all took place in the 2000s. Place was creepy, and I'd oftentimes get random feelings of dread. Even now, I occasionally have dreams about it, and they're always filled with a feeling of dread.
I lived in a haunted apartment 30 years ago. Numerous things happened, and it was never consistent. One night, as I was falling asleep, it felt like someone dropped a 200 lb weight on the corner of my bed. Both my dog and I jumped out of the bed. There was a long hallway from the living room to the kitchen. My dog was young and had an endless amount of energy. I was sitting on the couch, throwing his Kong down the hallway, and he'd bring it back to me. We'd do that for a long time. The Kong bounces erratically, and one time he comes back without it. We go into the kitchen, and I'm looking under the tables and on the chairs. I found it sitting upright in a hutch, behind all the photographs. Lastly, I had glass tops hanging from the ceiling. Just decorative. I'd been there almost a year, and this never happened before. Every night around 7, one of the tops started swinging, always at the same time. One night I lit a candle and put it near the top to see if there was a draft. As it got close to the top, the flame would decrease, pull away, and the flame would fire back up. The thing that I always think about when I start to second guess what happened, I've lived in several places since then, and nothing like it has ever happened again. If I was crazy, crazy might follow me. Weird things only happened in that apartment.